You are standing in the freezing snow, looking across a massive desolate valley, and you are outnumbered 3-1. A colossal Austrian army is waiting to crush you. Defeat does not just mean losing a single battle, it means your entire nation is wiped from the map forever. Here is the thing, it is December 1757. The winter wind is absolutely biting. King Frederick the Great looks at his troops and they are exhausted, freezing, and starving. Across the valley, the Austrians are literally laughing. They are drinking, warming themselves by the blazing fires, thinking this is going to be an incredibly easy win. But wait, what? Who exactly are they laughing at? Frederick was not even supposed to be a warrior? Growing up, he was a gentle poet. He played the flute and wrote philosophy. He was bullied relentlessly by a tyrannical father who absolutely hated his artistic soul. But Frederick did not break. He took all of that childhood trauma, all of that deep emotional pain, and turned it into ice cold discipline. Now, let us pause for a second. In the modern startup world, this exact scenario plays out every single day. You are the poet king. You are looking at a massive tech giant dominating your industry, and you are sitting there with nothing but a tiny seed round and a highly exhausted team. Do you attack them head-on? Do you try to match their massive marketing budget? No. You do not fight their war. You find their blind spot. And this is where Frederick does exactly that. Now this is the best part. He invents a completely crazy pivot right there on the frozen battlefield. History calls it the Oblique Order. He lines up a fraction of his army and fakes a massive frontal assault, sending his cavalry charging straight ahead, kicking up huge blinding clouds of winter dust. He is drawing all the Austrian attention to the absolute center of the board. While the enemy is entirely distracted by the noise and the chaos, he secretly marches his best troops behind a line of rolling snowy hills. Total stealth mode. The Austrians are looking straight ahead, seeing nothing but the fake assault. They have no idea that the real threat is moving right around their periphery, marching in perfect, terrifying synchronization. Seriously? Suddenly, the Prussian army appears out of nowhere right on the Austrian army's absolute weakest flank. It is a concentrated, high-speed strike. Frederick hits them with maximum impact and meets minimum resistance. He took his small, agile team and struck the giant right where the armor was thinnest. And the result is absolute, devastating chaos for the Austrians. In just 3 hours, Frederick completely destroys an army 3 times his size. It is a legendary masterclass in leverage. Oh, the royal European courts were stunned. In lavish palaces across the continent, the French and Russians dropped their wine glasses and whispered in sheer terror. The so-called poet king just rewrote the rules of war through sheer, unapologetic agility. But wait, there is more. The real lesson here is not about 18th century warfare. It is about you. When you are outgunned, outfunded, and outnumbered, you never play their game. You shift the board. You stay incredibly disciplined. You kick up some dust to distract the giants, and you strike exactly where they are blind. Now, go conquer your Leuthen. Wait, if you think beating one giant means you have won the entire game, you are absolutely wrong. This is where things get incredibly dark. See, when you disrupt an entire industry, the incumbents do not just walk away. They get angry. They form alliances. Fast forward a little bit. Frederick is no longer just fighting Austria. France, Russia, and Sweden have all teamed up. It is the ultimate corporate monopoly trying to crush one tiny disruptive startup. Imagine waking up to find the biggest tech empires in the world have all decided your specific company needs to die today. This is where the Poet King truly breaks. We have to talk about the Battle of Kunersdorf. It is a total bloodbath. Frederick loses almost his entire army in a single afternoon. He has 2 horses shot right out from under him. A musket ball literally hits his chest, and it is only stopped by a small gold snuff box inside his coat. Seriously, he is sitting alone in the dirt, covered in gunpowder and freezing rain, writing a final letter saying he will not survive the disaster. He carried a small glass vial of poison around his neck. He was ready to end it all right there. This is the dark night of the soul. Listen, this is the part of the startup journey nobody talks about on social media. The absolute crushing weight of survival. You had your big launch. You had your massive victory. But now the runway is burning. Your company founders are quitting, and the market is crashing. You are staring at the ceiling at 3 in the morning, holding your own metaphorical vial of poison, that deep, dark urge to just shut down the company, declare bankruptcy, and finally get some sleep. The psychological burden is completely suffocating. And here is the crazy part: he does not drink the poison. He uses the power of extreme emotional compartmentalization. He gathers the remaining shattered pieces of his team. He is looking at only 3,000 exhausted men out of what used to be an army of 50,000. He does not give a fake motivational speech. He just gives them a single, undeniable directive. We survived today. That is it. Just today. He pivots from a strategy of brilliant agility to a strategy of sheer, unkillable endurance. In Silicon Valley, they call this becoming a cockroach. When the glamorous growth hacking stops working, you have to become absolutely impossible to kill. You cut every single non-essential expense. You shrink your focus to the micro level. Frederick stopped trying to win the war and started trying to win the week. He marched his tiny army in endless circles, completely exhausting the massive Russian and Austrian supply lines. He used their own massive size against them. They were simply too slow, too bureaucratic to catch a ghost in the snow. The giants are starving in the winter, while the tiny startup survives on scraps. But the tension is far from over. Frederick is rapidly running out of time. His national treasury is completely empty. His biggest international investor just cut off all his funding. He is completely isolated on the global stage. The ultimate question now is how to survive when your very last lifeline is entirely gone. Listen closely, because this is where the romantic illusion of entrepreneurship goes completely out the window. You are staring at a dashboard that says $0.00. Your payroll is due in exactly 48 hours. You have no backup plan. You have no hidden reserves. For King Frederick, it is the winter of 1761. The Prussian treasury is not just low, it is non-existent. He is literally melting down the royal silver plates from his palaces just to buy bread for his freezing soldiers. The Russian army is marching straight into Berlin. Yes, the enemies are literally sitting in his capital city. Imagine your biggest corporate rival suddenly taking over your flagship store, poaching your best talent, and locking you out of your own servers. The humiliation is absolute. The end is not just near, it is staring him right in the face. But here is the thing. When you are pushed to the absolute brink of annihilation, you unlock a completely different level of human psychology. Frederick refuses to negotiate from a place of weakness. He tells his generals that if they cannot win, they will bury themselves under the ruins of their own country. This is the ultimate burn the boats mentality. In the modern startup ecosystem, we call this the default dead state. You are a walking ghost. The math says you should not exist. The market says you are finished, but you keep pushing code. You keep making cold calls. You keep breathing. You have to ask yourself why. It is because you are waiting for the board to change. You are buying time for the impossible. And then the impossible actually happens. History calls it the miracle of the House of Brandenburg. In January 1762, the Empress of Russia suddenly dies. Just like that. The mastermind behind the entire coalition against Prussia is gone in an instant. Her nephew, Peter III, takes the throne. Now, this part is absolutely wild. You see, Peter does not hate Frederick. In fact, Peter is a massive, unapologetic fanboy of the Prussian king. Growing up, Peter was obsessed with Prussian military tactics. He literally wore a Prussian uniform in the Russian court. He idolized the very man his country was trying to destroy. Oh, the irony is incredibly rich. The giant tech monopoly that was trying to crush you suddenly gets a new CEO, and that CEO happens to be your biggest subscriber. Within days, Peter completely reverses Russian foreign policy. He stops the war. He pulls his troops out of Berlin. He even sends his own soldiers to help Frederick fight the Austrians. The entire global alliance instantly collapses. The board is flipped upside down in a matter of 72 hours. Let that sink in for a moment. If Frederick had swallowed that poison at his lowest point, if he had surrendered when the math told him to give up, he would have missed the miracle by just a few months. The strategy here is not about hoping for luck. The strategy is that endurance creates the surface area for luck to strike. When you refuse to die, you force the universe to keep rolling the dice. You stay in the game long enough to see a black swan event. You survive long enough for the market to shift, for a competitor to make a fatal error, or for a massive angel investor to suddenly fall in love with your relentless grit. Do not pop the champagne just yet. You survived the startup death valley. You got the miracle funding. The enemy alliance is shattered. But Frederick looks around and sees a country that is completely burned to the ground. 400,000 people are dead. The infrastructure is gone. The fields are full of ash. Winning the war of survival is one thing. But now, you face a completely different monster. You have to pivot from being a wartime CEO who just breaks things and survives, to a peacetime builder who has to reconstruct an entire empire from absolute scratch. And let me tell you, the skills that kept you alive in the trenches are the exact skills that will destroy you in peacetime if you do not adapt. Imagine this: the smoke clears, and you are officially the undisputed winner. But your prize is a massive graveyard. Frederick is riding through his kingdom, and there is absolute silence. No farmers, no crops, just endless mud and mass starvation. He has zero resources to rebuild. The wartime adrenaline has completely worn off, leaving behind a crushing, hollow depression. In the startup world, we call this the post-launch hangover. You survived the brutal pivot. You secured the miracle funding. But now you look at your internal operations, and it is a total disaster. Your code base is held together by digital duct tape. Your customer service team is completely burned out. You realize that building a sustainable company is infinitely harder than just not dying. Now, this is the best part. Frederick needs a massive, scalable solution to fix the national famine. He finds a weird, ugly, dirt-covered vegetable from South America, the potato. It grows anywhere, survives harsh winters, and is packed with calories. It is the ultimate minimum viable product for agriculture. But there is a massive problem. The peasants absolutely hate it. They say it looks disgusting. They say it is not in the holy books. Even his own advisors think he has lost his mind. Frederick tries to force them. He passes strict laws. He threatens them. Nothing works. Seriously. The ultimate military genius who defeated 3 global empires cannot even get his own people to eat a simple vegetable. Here is the thing: when pure logic completely fails, you have to hack human psychology. Frederick realizes that value is not about utility. Value is about perception. So he completely changes the marketing strategy. He stops begging the peasants. Instead, he plants a massive royal potato field right outside his luxury palace. And then, he does something completely crazy. He surrounds the field with his elite, heavily armed royal guards. He orders them to patrol the potatoes day and night. But he secretly tells the guards to be a little bit lazy, to look the other way, to deliberately let people sneak in. Wait, what? You might wonder why he would do that. Because he understands the exclusivity principle. The peasants look at the heavily guarded field and think, if the king is protecting this ugly vegetable with his elite army, it must be incredibly valuable. Suddenly, the potato becomes the most highly desired asset in the entire country. People start sneaking in at night, stealing the potatoes, and planting them in their own hidden gardens. Frederick literally tricked an entire nation into saving themselves from starvation. Oh, the brilliance of it is staggering. When you are pushing a disruptive new software or a radical new product, and the market rejects it, do not just lower the price. Do not just yell louder. Shift the narrative. Create artificial scarcity. Make your solution feel like a closely guarded secret that the big tech giants do not want them to know about. Wait, there is more. Fixing the food supply is just a band-aid. The real trauma of war never actually left Frederick, and this is where the story gets incredibly lonely. You see, a wartime CEO survives by trusting absolutely no one. You check every single detail. You sleep with one eye open. Frederick brings this exact same extreme paranoia into peacetime. He refuses to delegate. He micromanages every single bridge, every single tax law, every single brick laid in his new cities. He becomes a massive operational bottleneck. His top generals, the very men who bled for him in the snow, start resigning in pure frustration. He is building a beautiful machine, but he is the only one allowed to touch the controls. Listen closely, because this is the exact trap that kills successful founders. You spent 3 years fighting for survival. You had to approve every single expense. You had to review every single line of code. But now you have a team of 200 people. If you are still reviewing every single social media post, you are not leading. You are suffocating your own empire. The psychological shift from doing everything yourself to trusting others with your baby is absolutely agonizing. Frederick struggled with this until his very last breath. He built a superpower, but he built it entirely around his own brain. You have to ask yourself a terrifying reality check. If you step away from your startup for exactly 30 days, you must figure out if the machine keeps growing, or if it completely collapses. Imagine this, the clock finally runs out. It is August 1786. The great King Frederick is sitting in a worn-out armchair in his study. He is completely exhausted. He is not surrounded by his family, nor his top generals. He is sitting there with only his Italian greyhound dogs. Seriously, the man who defeated empires, who built a massive European superpower from absolute dust, dies in total emotional isolation. And the result is a terrifying historical echo. Because he micromanaged every single detail, because he built a machine that only his specific brain could operate, his empire eventually stagnated. Just a couple of decades later, a new startup founder named Napoleon Bonaparte comes along and completely crushes the outdated Prussian army. Let that sink in. Frederick won the war of survival, but he ultimately failed the war of succession. Now this is the best part, or maybe the most painful part. The ultimate test of your leadership is not what happens when you are in the room. It is what happens when you leave it. You started your company as a poet. You had a beautiful vision. Then the market forced you to become a ruthless warrior just to survive. But if you want to build a legacy, you have to evolve one last time. You have to become the architect. You have to stop writing every line of code and start writing the culture. You have to let your team make mistakes. You have to let them fail, because that is the exact same way you learned how to win. If your entire business relies on your sheer willpower to survive, you do not own a company. You own a high-paying prison. Think about the heavy toll it takes on your mental health. You are sacrificing your relationships, your sleep, and your very soul for a metric on a dashboard. Frederick sacrificed everything for his country, but he forgot to build the very people who would inherit it. The greatest product you will ever build is not your app, and it is not your service. It is your team. You must transition from a wartime commander who barks orders to a peacetime coach who empowers leaders. Wait, there is more. I want you to look back at the entire journey of the Poet King. He was bullied. He was outnumbered 3-1 in the freezing snow. He faced total bankruptcy. He carried a literal vial of poison around his neck. Yet, he refused to break. He used extreme agility at Leuthen. He used unkillable endurance when the giants allied against him. He used brilliant psychological marketing with the potato to rebuild his entire nation. He took his deepest childhood trauma and forged it into an empire. Your startup journey is exactly the same. The late nights, the burning runway, the crushing anxiety, they are not just obstacles. They are the exact raw materials you need to forge your own greatness. Here is the thing. You are listening to this right now because you are in the arena. Maybe you are freezing in your own metaphorical snow, staring down a giant tech monopoly. Maybe you are holding your own vial of poison, wondering if you should just shut it all down. Or maybe you just secured your miracle funding, and now you have to rebuild from the ashes. Wherever you are in your hero journey, I want you to know that you are not alone. The history of human progress is built by crazy, exhausted, relentless people just like you. I want to hear your story. I want to know what giant you are fighting today. Send me an email right now at vodokviankny12@gmail.com. Tell me about your darkest night, and tell me how you are going to shift the board. Do not surrender. Do not drink the poison. Keep breathing, keep pushing, and go build your empire.